Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 16 of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playbox Technology UK. Today we'll be speaking to Mark Vadik from VPOD TV. Mark is credited with a variety of different professions within the media and entertainment industries. A director, actor, entertainment lawyer and a producer, to name a few. Now, Mark takes on broadcasting with the team at VPOD TV, a brand new channel based out in Chicago, which centres around video podcasting content. We really hope that you enjoy this episode. Right, so we'll get straight into it then, Mark. So how are you today?
I'm doing really good, really good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, mate. Not too bad. It's Friday, isn't it? Just on the cusp of the weekend.
Yeah, I am pretty grateful for the week coming to an end. I'll tell you the truth.
Yes. Yep. So, Mark, I think we'll just get straight into the questions then, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Awesome. So, Mark, how did you get your start within the media and the broadcasting industry as a whole? And what was your background like when you first started?
I was a failed actor. Actually, there's truth to that. I started acting when I was a kid, and fancied myself an actor even through college. And when I graduated college, I had, much to appease my mother, I applied to law schools because she did not want me to pay for college so that I could be a bartender for the rest of my life. And when I graduated, so I got accepted at a bunch of schools, but the law school I wound up going to offered me a scholarship. And at the same time, I got offered my first role off Broadway, and the two conflicted. And that was kind of a moral dilemma. And I remember the advice was that I could always go act, but I could not always have people pay for me to go to school. So I went to school and still acted locally and started directing and writing and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. So I was focusing on, studying to be a lawyer, or I guess barrister or solicitor, as y'all would say. That was what was going on. And I had always just really missed the arts in theater and acting and writing. So I was trying to keep active. Even in law school, I was still directing plays.
Can you get rusty? Say you were focusing on just practicing law. Can you get rusty from acting and filmmaking, or is it something that always kind of sticks with you?
I think you can. Thank you. That was kind of a nice feed segue for me. So after I had practiced law for about 10 years or so, I really began to miss it more and more, and I had still participated in it. But I decided to close my law firm. And I was doing entertainment law, so I had represented some actors and some pretty famous people, and was packaging some theater and things like that. But I started to close the firm, and I literally went back to my alma mater, which was Northwestern University, and I wanted to get my master's in theater. And the rationale behind that was I really did think that you can get rusty. And it's like a muscle. So when I went, and at this time I think I had worked on a few Broadway plays, packaging them, some that had won Tonys, and I had represented guys who were icons in the entertainment industry. And so when I went back, they asked me, why are you coming back to school? And I literally said, because I got to knock the rust off my wheels. And I think doing that within an academic environment is a very safe environment to get your sea legs back.
Yeah. So I think is it your office that you're sat in at the moment?
Yes, that's correct.
I think for the listeners, what I'm seeing now is a perfect representation of Mark's career. I think is that kind of law diplomas and stuff in the background. And then, of course, we've got some reels on the other side, some film reels. So I think that's just brilliant. So the next question I kind of had for you, Mark, was obviously you've been involved in things like theatre and poetry, film and TV. Could you condense it into the one single thing that draws you in the most about the media and entertainment industry? What is it that keeps you coming back?
Boy, I think it's what it is, and it's at its highest level. Okay. And for me, be, art in general, theater, poetry, film, TV, and I'm not, by the way, let me preface this for anyone who's seen my movies, they're not art, but in an ideal scenario.
I've seen the trailers, Mark. They are
Yeah.
art.
Thank you. You are very kind. I'll send you the check later. For me, those mediums they kind of they're transcendent, so they speak across cultural, racial, ethnic, religious boundaries. And that's an ideal world. And in those rare moments when you're working on projects like that, and you get to experience that, it becomes very addictive. And so it does draw you back in time and time again. So that's really what keeps pulling me back. And film, it's interesting. It's one of the few mediums where you get couched very easily. You stay in your little niche, and it doesn't really happen in theater. It's one of the things I like about theater. Like they don't say, "Oh my God, you just you directed a Shakespearean play. You can't do Pinter now because you're this." But like if you're in film, and my first experience was a horror movie, and they go, "Well, you're a horror director," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I really like this story," and they're like, "No, so for a while, I was really focused. I was getting hired a lot to write and ghostwrite and direct stuff, but principally in the genre. Even to the point where people used to ask me, "What do you do for a living?" And I go, "I kill college kids in the woods." And so they'd look at me kind of funny. I go, "Not for real." They go, SAG won't let me. SAG's the Screen Actors Guild here.
Okay.
So that's really what kind of keeps me going. So I fancy myself a storyteller, and honestly, that even translates into my legal profession, because I principally did trial work, and I think a good trial lawyer is also a storyteller. You have to tell the story.
Mark, if I just introduce the kind of audience to obviously how we came to meet. You've got a pretty exciting project coming up, haven't you? A new television channel that you guys are setting up.
Yeah.
Could you just introduce us to VPOD and what you guys are trying to achieve?
Yeah. So VPOD TV, which stands for Video Podcast, and it's www.vpodtv.com. Please check that out. But what it is it's a broadcast television station in the Chicago market. And it's a true broadcast station in that we're over the air. And then it's coupled with an OTT platform, over-the-top platform. And it will be focused on talk. So it's really focused on adding visual elements to podcast and broadcasting them so that we can, expand the market and the audience share for those people.
So was there a single kind of moment where you decided that you'd go ahead with VPOD? What inspired you guys to go ahead with it?
Honestly, well, here, I'll tell you another, boy, I hope I don't bore your listeners to death. So when I was 6, and I don't think I told you this while we were talking, but when I was 6, and I'm dating myself, but music videos started to become really popular. And so I got the brilliant idea of putting together a music video television station. And I had brought that idea to my father, who laughed. And you'd be surprised how hard it is for a 6-year-old to go to like a venture capitalist and try and raise money. It just wouldn't nothing. They give you a set of Legos. Go get out of here. But I really thought it would have been a great idea. And I remember people laughing at me and going, "Who's going to sit at home and watch music?" And then, sure enough, MTV, VH1, et cetera, comes along. And so I was like, okay. And then as I got a little bit older, I started producing some commercials. And one of my jobs in college was selling cable space. And so I was selling advertising on cable and producing the commercials as well. And they didn't have enough content. And at that point, they had offered me a cable station in Chicago. and I just didn't know what to put on it. So I passed, and I kind of regret doing that. Jump forward some more time. I started exploring putting together a television station because I had started producing some television shows, and like most things, where the distribution side of the business tends to be more economically stable than the creative side. There's a disproportionate risk on creation unless you have distribution. So I started looking into it probably 4 or 5 years ago, to be honest. And so as a result of that, Kent, who's one of our consultants, called me, and there was this opportunity that came up. Well, unfortunately, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and content is king if you're going to create a station. Otherwise, you're kind of just rebroadcasting other people's stuff. And nothing wrong with that. There's great business models, but I really wanted to blend that. And I was thinking, what can you create safely during a pandemic? And like right now, I'm producing a film, or co-producing a film in Minnesota. Plug it, called Way of the Warriors. It's a hockey movie, but we're running into all kinds of obstacles because of COVID. So obviously, if we need a constant stream of content, I was like, we can't do that. Well, what can you do with a limited cast and limited crew? Podcast, and podcasts are kind of the equivalent of what the music video was back when I was 6 years old. It's very engaging for young people, which I just dated myself as old by using the term young people, by the way. But
don't worry.
Now's the point where you go, he you don't only describe my background, you go, he has this full black hair and a black beard and all this stuff.
We'll Photoshop you in the picture
whatsoever. There we go. We'll Photoshop it. That is a good idea. Since podcasts were kind of, in my mind, the equivalent of music videos, and again, when I brought the subject up, people literally said, well, the draw of the podcast is you can listen to it anywhere. So who's going to sit at home and watch a podcast? Well, since that was the same thing that I was told about music videos, I was like, okay, maybe I can catch lightning twice in a bottle, and we're going to try this.
With all the kind of producer, director, actor credits that you've had throughout your career, how well do you think this prepares you for setting up a TV channel? Have you got all your bases covered now? I can imagine you, darting around, creating the content, writing up the scripts for the interviews, all this kind of stuff. But how well prepared do you think you are?
Having a wide breadth of experience, from writer, director, producer, lawyer, actor, it is very helpful. My first film, I had the good fortune of having a first assistant director, production coordinator, if you will, who knew theater, because I had moved from theater to film, and never really even entertained doing a movie. And he translated that language for me very well. So I'm like, who's that guy? Who's that gaffer? He goes, lighting designer. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, who are you? He goes, house manager, stage manager. Oh, okay, I got you. And so he translated it for me, and we got through that shoot. And what I learned was that on that film set, if you really wanted to be able to direct it, no pun intended on being a director, but if you really wanted to be able to move and create what you wanted, and at least move it in that direction, because it's collaborative, you had to know everybody's job so that you could talk to them and you could appreciate the problems that they were dealing with. So to that extent, I think, being a producer, director, writer, actor, lawyer, Indian chief, it helps, because you not necessarily because I can do anything, because I can't. You only have 24 hours in a day. But when I'm delegating things to people, it helps because I can understand the hurdles that they're going to be experiencing and the obstacles, and I might be able to help get them through some of those obstacles easier.
So when you were kind of building up the idea of VPOD and the infrastructure you're going to have coming along with this channel, what were the main concerns for you guys? What did you want to prioritize in terms of getting the infrastructure set up for the channel?
Well, again, I kind of got lucky, if you will, in that the group of people that I worked with, when we pooled our resources and our collective experience, it just seemed like the infrastructure kind of came together. It was a very complementary relationship. So, Jason, who I think you had talked to, Jason knows tech and marketing. I knew the creative and the nuts and bolts of production and all the exciting contract stuff that comes along with it. And Kent, knew the technical side, and he's run stations before. So fortunately, it started to come together pretty easily, and where we had some stop gaps, we bring people together.
I know we were talking about, obviously, this is all being set up during coronavirus, but how has COVID-19 impacted your plans to set up VPOD, and did it motivate you guys, or did it present more obstacles?
Oh boy, I hear you're in London. Best of times, worst of times. Okay.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah, it was literally both. It really was. I mean, it forced certain creativity and creative choices, and how are you going to function safely too? Because while I absolutely appreciate art and creation and production, I don't want to see anyone get seriously ill or die because we're in production. I just don't think that's a remotely fair trade. So how do you create, like we had discussed before? How do you keep that safety, and how do you still tell stories? And so part of my background was what they called performance studies, as opposed to theater. So it's a fine distinction, but performance studies incorporated, oral interpretation of literature, performance art, poetry, a little bit broader spectrum than stage theater did. And so again, the storyteller, I don't even know what you call it, the podcaster, the video podcaster, a storyteller. Yeah, it seems like a really good, safe way to create engaging content. And, to that end, we had a talk with one of our branding people, and, we were like trying to kick around slogans, because that's what you do. We had talked about, bringing talk back to TV, and they were like, well, there are talk shows. And I go, well, there are talk shows, but they're not substantive talk shows. And I'm not saying, by the way, that we are going to be, but like now people seem to go on talk shows because I've got a book coming out, I've got a movie coming out, I'm dropping my new single. They don't have a conversation for the sake of having a conversation and the substance of it. And so when I say that we're kind of bringing the talk back to television, what I'm hoping is that we're bringing a conversation about that does have a little bit more weight and meaning and civility, by the way. People just don't have civil conversations anymore. I mean, we've turned into a pretty polarized society where, depending on which show you walk onto, if you say the wrong thing, or you wear the wrong ribbon, or whatever it is, they'll try and crucify you. And so hopefully the types of shows that we'll be bringing are engaging, telling stories, but they'll also have that substantive element about them.
Mark, I guess just to kind of finish up on, what do you envision for the future of VPOD, and how do you think it's going to excel?
Well, I think we're bringing a pretty eclectic group of original programming to the table. We're also living off some old classic stuff, right? So we'll incorporate old stuff, classic television, and then as we create new content, which is going to be longer, by the way, because of the pandemic, just by force, it takes longer to produce stuff. We'll start cycling that out. So that's kind of how I see it going in the short term. In the long term, I'd love for it to turn into something like a WGN, which is a station in Chicago that started out as a really small little broadcast station. And now, honestly, it's one of the biggest national stations in the country. And I would love to kind of follow that model where we have affiliates and they're bringing our content into their various markets. So yeah, that would be I guess my long-term goal with that.
So I guess all that's left is how can people get in touch with you personally, and where can they find out more about VPOD TV when it launches?
Sure. Well, obviously they can go to the website, which is www.vpodtv.com. And if they want to get a hold of me, so if you're a content producer or just have questions, or you're interested in affiliates, partnering somehow, advertisers, please take note. They can reach me at just Mark, M-A-R-K, at VPODtv.com. And then the other thing that I guess I should say for content producers, because, a big part of, I think, what draws people to podcasting is, opening up the ability to get your ideas across, right? And so we're having a contest as well. So if you want to sign up for the contest where you think you'll be a good content creator, we've got a spot for you, and I'll be really interested to see about the ideas that people come up with for the station.
Yeah, so definitely any budding content creators out there, definitely take up the offer on that. I'm really excited to see what you guys do, and can't wait. It's gonna be really exciting.
Appreciate the help, like you guys, at Playbox too, have been really helpful. Like your solution is really, it's made it a lot easier than it would have been without it.
Thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time out as always. It really is appreciated. I think that was a really good one. And just because of some of your